Today we're talking about the ripple effect, and this is based on a chapter in my new book. Although I have changed the title of the chapter, so it's no longer there, but the essence of what I'm talking about is. So I'm down to, I've got everything in that book, but it's not ready yet. I'm hoping it'll be ready early next year. That's realistic, I think, realistic projection. I thought I had it pretty much done, and I do, but every time I go through it, I find something more, and sometimes I'll split a chapter, or it'd be too long, or combine two chapters or something like that. So I don't want to rush it, which I haven't. It's only been a couple of years I've been working on it. So this is the ripple effect. The spiritual awakening sends ripples through every facet of life. Relationships deepen, ordinary tasks take on new meaning, and a sense of well-being begins to infuse daily experience. This is what Jesus implied when he said, "Seek first the kingdom, and all these things shall be yours as well." Spiritual realization is not an escape from life, but a transformation of perception. Life ceases to be a struggle for survival. It becomes a creative partnership with the divine. And that is the idea of delving deeper into our center, our spiritual center, is that life gets better. What I don't say here is that a relationship may deepen, but it may also, you may go separate ways. It may dissolve. Love draws to us that which is for our highest good and dissolves that which is not. And one of the challenges we will encounter is if we're not ready for it to dissolve, or we think we need it. We think we need something that appears to be dissolving. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, to be able to recognize when something should be let go, or when we should make a little extra effort to keep it going. But that's one of the advantages of thinking from the perspective of love. If we say love is doing this for us, that it's drawing to us that which is for our highest good and dissolving that which is not. It's not something we're doing. But what we need to be is aware of when it is time to go on, when it is time to move forward. And that's not always easy to know. But when we talk about the spiritual awakening rippling through all of life, every aspect of life is, we're in spirit, and we are infinite souls going through a moment, and we're sometimes confused by that because we forget the infinite side. We forget the soul side. We get very much involved in the surface of everything. So the spiritual life, the development of the spiritual life, when I think back about when I first discovered the book Lessons in Truth, I consider that the beginning of my spiritual journey, formally, because I don't really count the earlier times of my traditional religious training. It's all part of something. It gives kind of a backdrop for everything. But I didn't really start questioning till then, and until I discovered Katie's Lessons in Truth. And even back then it was not easy, because I thought, that reading that book was like a real mind-opening experience, and it just seemed like now I've got it. I've got all I need to go forward. Well, I was 16 years old. And I don't think any 16-year-old has enough, all it needs to go forward. We think we do. But it was a very memorable time. But that, with maturity, you kind of get where it's not always going to, you're not going to reach a point where from then on, everything's great. There will be ups and downs. There will be, changes that we're not expecting, detours and all of that. But I think it's more the matter of being aware of expanding our awareness. The whole spiritual thing helps expand our awareness to the point that we're not this body, that this too shall pass, whatever we're involved in. And I think that's been the most helpful thing to me. I don't know when I gave up this idea that one day I'll cross that finish line and that'll be it, that it'll be the day of enlightenment and I'll never go back. I've had many days of enlightenment, and I expect to have many more. But it's when I have them, like Beth and I were walking the other day, and I just had what I call was hit by that cosmic wave. It's just a feeling that there's absolute love, that you're just immersed in this infinite intelligence. And it feels like it's so real that it would never subside. But it seems that you get back involved and, look at life and you lose that feeling. I would like to live with that feeling all the time. I just don't know how to do it, and I've come to accept that that's okay. It's okay that I don't do that. But when I step back into it, when it stirs again, it feels like I know then it's always going to be there. It's never going to leave me. I may leave it, but that won't cause any damage. So I think that's part of spiritual maturity, is knowing that on this earthly plane, it's kind of an up and down thing. It's like the stock market. Some days it goes up and some days it goes down. But the trick is to hang in there, is to know, to understand that's sort of how it works. And maybe there are people who cross that line and never go back, never stop having that cosmic wave. I have read several mystics that seem to have that, but most that I have read have talked about the dark night of the soul and the times when they felt very much in tune with God and then felt abandoned by that presence, or they abandoned the presence. It's not something that's unique to me, I'm convinced. But it's, I would like to always live in that state where I'm aware of that presence all the time. I think that would be great. And because when we were walking, it wasn't a real intense experience, just a nice feeling of knowing I'm one with something a lot bigger than me. And that's a very comforting feeling, a very inspiring feeling. And it just kind of, you put all your worldly cares behind at that moment. Then you walk a few more steps and it begins to fade. And it's that part is kind of a mystery to me. It always has been. I would rather not be so anchored in this world, but I don't know how not to be. And I'm not sure that I shouldn't be. I talked some time ago about the Sufi, they call it a must, a person who is totally intoxicated by God and can't even function in the world. I think that'd be kind of fun, maybe on the weekend. I don't know, that's, but you want to be able to function. And so that's what's available to us. We live in God. We live in all there is in God, and our mind could break through to that place. There was a guru that would travel around and find these people and bring them back down to earth, where they could actually become part of society again. But I can see how that would be a draw to somebody, to get away and not, be a part of this world. But then why even have a body? Why even be here? That thought has crossed my mind too. Why take on a body than spend our whole life trying to get rid of it, trying to transcend it, try to live beyond it? It's must be part of the journey, must be the enjoyment of the body somehow. And I think that's pretty normal. Jesus understood how difficult this awakening can be. Knowing that few would find it, he emphasized the power of small shifts, a change of thought, a new perspective, a step toward trust. Even modest insights send ripples that expand into waves of transformation. His constant refrain, ask, seek, knock, reminds us that persistence is the key. And that's true. My persistence is in remembering that even when I feel separate, I'm still one. That is something I think we all could practice more persistence in, that we will never damage our relationship with the infinite. It's impossible to do. And as I've said many times, that was one of my biggest fears in my early spiritual life, was I would feel like I would make these great gains. You know, you pick up a book and it just opens your mind totally, feels like, and then you lose that. I feel like you lose more than you gain, because you want to be in that inspired state all the time. But it's where I have matured is you don't lose it. You don't ever lose that connection. And even if you walk through the valley of shadow of death, you know, it's still with you. That presence is still with you. And to stop and know that, even when you're feeling it's not there, it's a very important thing to be able to do, because I think that's one of the greatest realizations I've had, is I cannot damage my relationship to God. I can close my eyes to it, but I can't damage it. And I truly carried that as a fear, you know, in my early life, especially as a minister. You get up and you talk about this stuff all the time. Well, what if you have to get up and talk about it and you don't feel like it? You know, you don't feel like you're one with God, but you're trying to tell everybody else that they are, and that they shouldn't forget it and all of that. It feels like hypocrisy. And it was a difficult thing to work through. It took many years to get through that. And I'm not sure I'm totally through it yet, but I'm able to talk about it at least. And but that was a very important thing to me. When I got in ministerial school, I'd had this incredible mystical experience, mystical awakening. And the more I got to know my fellow students, the more I realized they had not had that. They did not know what I was talking about when they knew about what they had read. They'd read about that kind of experience, but they had not themselves had it. And I just got through writing in the book, you can be in the religious business all your life and never have a mystical experience, never have a spiritual experience. I watched a program years ago with, it was a bunch of monks. They were in a monastery someplace interviewing these monks about their own spiritual experience. And these guys had never had a spiritual awakening. They never had a mystical breakthrough. You could tell by listening to the way they talked. And you got the impression they were more in the monastery to escape life than they were to participate in life. And that's a judgment, but I'm going by what I heard and what the experience I had myself. I can tell when somebody else is speaking the language of the mystic, if they have made that breakthrough, and these guys didn't act like they had a clue as to what they were talking about. They knew all the rituals, they knew all the stuff that you do in a monastery, but they didn't seem to have had that awakening. God was still up there in the sky someplace, still far away. And that was kind of an interesting thing to watch. And I know that sounds totally judgmental, but if you've been scuba diving like you have, and you talk to somebody like me who is not, and I would try to convince you that I had been, you would know I hadn't, because you have been there and I have not. So it's the difference in having the experience and reading about it, or watching, what's that Lloyd Bridges old show that we used to watch what was it? Sea Hunt, yeah. Yeah, that was a kind of weekly diet, part of my diet. But you know when another person has had an experience like you have and has not. You can tell by the way they talk. There's something different about it. I heard somebody imitating Missourians the other day on YouTube, and I could tell they'd never been there, because I am a Missourian. I know what a tar is. You got 4 of them on your car. That's it's like you can just tell. But again, that's not a judgment. But you can be in the religious industry all your life and never have a spiritual awakening. And there are a lot of people in that. And I felt like that's why I got out of our organization. It was being run by people who had never had a mystical experience. They didn't know what they were talking about. They knew how to run an organization in the ground, but they did not know this spiritual dimension. They knew the books to read. They knew all the words to say. They knew how to inflect the right tone of voice to sound like they're loving, caring people. But there's a difference, and you know when someone's touched that and when they have not. And again, that's not, I just thought when I got in this, everybody would have had a mystical experience. But Beth and I met at Unity Village, and there were over 1,000 people there. And I would drive 60 miles every week, sometimes 2 and 3 times, to go to have that experience because it meant so much to me. And the more I got to know people there, the more I realized that we're not on the same wavelength in that regard. We love what we're hearing. We love the positive aspect of it. We know that it's better than the old story we were told. There's something very uplifting about it. But this is we want to keep our minds open to that spiritual dimension, because that's the thing that changes us. That's the thing that made me decide to give my life to this work. Freedom, he taught, begins with recognizing the inner source of strength and guidance. Those who depend solely on external rescue remain enslaved to circumstance. The miracle he offered was not spectacle, but insight, a change of mind that releases spiritual energy into action. That's kind of the focus of the book, is the difference in what I think Jesus taught and what came after him. I just heard a guy last night, Robert Price. He's a funny scholar, which is an unusual combination. But he said the Jesus of Christianity is not the root, it's the fruit. The Jesus of Christianity is not the root, it's the fruit. The Jesus we think of as the fruit of this movement has nothing to do with the man himself. And it's he's got a very good insight. He actually doesn't think Jesus even existed. He thinks it's all a myth. He's a mythologist. But I like what he says. I like his approach to the Bible. I like the way he talks about things, because it's very down to earth. It makes a lot of sense. I believe Jesus was a person that existed. I just believe he's completely misunderstood. That he's talking about a level of experience that he knows not everybody's going to have, but it's possible for everybody. But I think his focus in his ministry was on the mind, how the mind relates to the experience. I think that's where he spent most of his time. But people, the modern scholars, tend to think he was an apocalyptic prophet, one that was saying the kingdom's going to come. No mystic would ever say that. No person who ever had a mystical breakthrough would say that there is a political, social change coming and it's going to drop out of the sky or come from someplace. What we're looking for is already here. And that's what he was saying, that you can have one of these cosmic wave experiences right where you are, walking down this path. It's not something that nothing in the universe changes. It's that we change our perspective. And a lot of people in his day, as a lot of people in our day, are looking for something to come and make their life better. And that is, what's interesting is you could ask yourself the question, is there a way I could make my life better right now, in this moment? Is there a way I can do that? If you can imagine, there's no cap on you, there's no limit to what your mind can do, and you're probably not going to have a mystical experience right here, but is there a way you can make your life better? Just any way. Maybe you're worried about something. I can stop worrying. Is that possible? Can you stop worrying? I have proven to myself that I can, at will, stop worrying. If I really put my mind to it, I can make myself stop worrying, and I can do it not through force, but through remembering that I'll get through it. I always have. And it's a shift of perception. And when you just kind of analyze your mind, that's when you're worried, how it works, and how you're visualizing, how you're using your imagination and your emotions and all of this. These are all choices that we're making in this moment. That's not an easy thing to realize, but we're saying, no, that thing is making the choice for me. If it wasn't here, I wouldn't be worried. And that's true. If it wasn't there, you probably wouldn't be worried. But it is there. So is it possible to be in this world but not of it? Is that possible? Or does something need to change before you can make the choice to be free? That's always the question that's before us. And it's one of the hardest questions in the world probably to answer, and yet one of the easiest. Because if you look at yourself, what you're doing to yourself right at this very moment, and say, I don't have to do this. Say you're having a negative reaction. You say, I don't have to do this, because you don't. There's nothing making you have to do this. But we are usually projecting something, and somehow we feel obligated to keep doing that. And I'm not sure what that is. It's habit. It's just habit. That's all it is. So are we going to be governed by our habits? That's the question, I guess, that we would ask ourselves. And we don't have to be. But freedom begins with recognizing the inner source of strength and guidance. That's what I'm saying here, is where is our strength? Is it in getting the change in the outer, or is it deciding, do we have the strength to decide I will take a different tact, in my thought and emotion right now? His parables describe this process as gradual and organic. The seed becoming grain, the widow who refuses to lose heart, the field already white for harvest. The work is inner, yet its results appear outwardly as greater peace, clarity, and harmony. And that's one thing I make a point to notice, is when you change your mind, you change how you feel. You change your physical feeling. And that change of physical feeling goes out every place, goes out to everything that you do. So it's just something to be aware of. If you're in a situation now, a mental, emotional situation, you're in some kind of a dilemma now, this is a good time to practice that, to see, can I change my mind? Do I have a choice here in how I'm thinking and how I'm feeling? And if you answer, yes, I do have the choice, do you have the strength to make the choice, to change? And the answer there also is yes, I do have the strength, because that which is in me is greater than that which is in the world. And what is the world? It's what's going on in my head at any given moment, and my emotional level. Jesus' teaching operates on several levels. On the surface, it speaks to the creative power of thought. Thorns do not produce grapes. At a deeper level, it calls for direct awareness of the divine presence within. Here, prayer is not petition, but realization, on earth as it is in heaven. And I've always loved that phrase, on earth as it is in heaven. Where is heaven? Heaven, it is that center of peace in us that we find. And we want, on earth, we want our external life to reflect that. And really what we mean by that is it may not reflect it, but we want to be able to perceive that even while the situation that we're not particularly fond of is still there. Can I be at peace in the midst of this challenge? And the answer is yes, but will I? That the jury's out on that one until we make the decision. But it's just good to take a situation where you feel out of control, and you're aware of that, and you stop, and you change that. You confront it directly, and you change it. Can I change this state of mind, this state of feeling, the state I'm in right now? Can I change that? And the answer is yes, but will you? And how do you do it? It's a choice. It's a decision. I will no longer do this. I will stop doing this now. It's like, how do you make the pain in your hand go away? You stop hitting your hand with a hammer. And the moment you stop, things get better real soon. But if we're thinking that way, if our mind is in that mindset, that set of mind, that perspective, that's our reality at that moment. So what kind of a savior do we need to come and change that? There's only one. There's only one thing that can change your mind, and that's you. That's being conscious of what's going on right now. So the gospel suggests that many of his greatest works were unrecorded, rippling quietly through ordinary lives. The true miracle is not water turned into wine, but fear turned to faith, resentment turned to love, struggle turned to peace. A single day lived free from anxiety may seem small, yet it embodies the essence of his promise to the kingdom of God unfolding in the midst of everyday life. There's a passage where it talks about women that were following him, and they were financially supporting his ministry. There was Mary Magdalene, there was a couple of Marys, and some other women. But it said that they had been healed of demons or evil spirits or some infirmity. But it doesn't say what it is. It doesn't talk about exactly what went on. We don't know what a demon is. Mary Magdalene was given a very bad reputation somewhere along the line, and the scholars have turned around and they're saying that she was probably a very wealthy, one of his closest disciples. Some even say maybe his wife. That's the rumor that's going around. But none of that matters. But the point I'm making here is it doesn't go into detail about these women their lives changed enough to follow him and support him. Something made a difference. And it wasn't big enough to say, they weren't feeding 5,000 people, they weren't walking on water, they weren't raising people from the grave. Just quiet things happened that changed their whole life. I remember sitting in the audience at Unity Village, surrounded by 1,000 people, that we were listening to a minister, Sig Paulson. And very quietly, I watched him, and something in me changed. I said, I would like to do that. I would like to do what he's doing. And it's like that changed the whole course of my life, added with all the other stuff that went along with it. But that was a miracle. It was a life-changing miracle. It's one of those whys in the road where just sitting there quietly, and I don't know that any of the other 1,000 people made a career change in that moment, but many quiet things like that happen. Another story I shared in my book was a woman that came to me. I think I've shared this, but she had been suffering from depression almost all of her life, and she was on 21 medications, and she was ready to kill herself. She got to a point where she felt like she couldn't go on another moment, probably because of the drugs. What do 21 prescription drugs do to your brain? I'm not sure. She wasn't either, but she was going to take them all at the same time. She knew what that would do. And she had them all lined out and was ready. And something in her said, don't do that. And it was a small miracle. What she did instead is she flushed them down the toilet. And she fairly slowly came out of her depression. She weaned herself of the medication, and when she talked to me, I could never have guessed the life and the state of mind she described to me. I could never have guessed that's where she was at one point. She was very happy, very cheerful, very confident in her ability to live a successful life now. So that was a quiet thing that happened to her. And it wasn't anything I said because I didn't know her at the time. It wasn't part of me, but she became part of our church and shared that story. But how many of those things happen? I've heard many stories like that. I had another guy that listened to me on the radio, and he too had his pills lined out, was ready to take them all. And he said he heard something I said. He didn't even remember what it was, but he wrote me a letter. Said I saved his life just by something that I said. I didn't know I saved his life. I had no plans to save anybody's life that day. But it's those kinds of things. There's so many that happen, and it's all what seemed like a small change of mind, a small change. It's not somebody coming and fixing, it's seeing differently, shifting perception. And it can make a huge difference, change my total life, the whole direction, the whole trajectory of my life. Those few moments, just thinking, I could do that, I'd like to do that. And to me, that's a miracle. But the only reason it's going to be known by the world is because I'm going to share it in my book. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. Thanks again for your interest in independent unity, and have a wonderful week.